so Earthwork, and give me a second because we don't have a write-up on this. So basically, Earthwork is a different approach than now. So basically, what we have to do is do a service comparison. So we kind of need, we have the existing ground right here. We kind of need a top surface to be able to use that as comparison. There's a few different ways to create that top surface. I'll show you where the tools are here. It's under so we're going to create cut fill volumes here. We're still on analysis. So it's looking for, or it's going to set this feature definition. So I'm going to run the command. I think it's pulling from, I think everything's set correctly, but we're going to see what happens. So you got the feature definition for cut and fill. You got options for unsuitable if you really need it, but that's not something we're going to have on this project. So we'll just click through and you'll see it. If everything's set correctly and you have the latest feature definitions, that's the important thing. The feature definitions have been set up. The different things have design, volume on each feature definition, and it's going to be using those to pick that up. So if it works, then we'll get something from this. All right, we can go to Red's model.
What are we supposed to get from running that command? Because I've ran that one instead of the end area method one, and it started generating cut and fill shapes in my project.
Yes, that's what it should be doing. I'm just trying to see if I see anything in here. There we go. So it's on construction, so it is there. You can see the red and the blue, and I think it's under where it says it under.
Standards. Go to your open road standards.
Oh, so it doesn't. I thought it showed up in the model.
No, I think it's
the feature definitions are here.
Under mesh. Should have a volumes.
Right. You can toggle these on and off. You can see them there. So your blue is fill and your red is cut. And if I look at cross-section, this will be a little bit easier to see. Oops. So you can see the section cut graphics in here. So there's my cut. And there's, you can find a section with fill. And we just have about a cut. turn off my server ORD levels. It'll make it easier to see. Looks like somewhere in this area I should have it. There you go, should have some fill. So now you get both. So right here is your fill. Of course, this is neither because it's just pavement. But yeah, this is the one section where the actual earthwork fill. And then, of course, your side slopes, these are filled. Over here, I think we're still in cut. Then your volume is on this. There's a few different ways to do that. But now Candy will get into the putting those into your quantities, that step. But I'm just going to show you a couple different tools on the volume side of what we can get out of these. So if I go to analyze volume, so you can do the terrain model to terrain model volume. The problem is, I don't think we have existing ground. We don't have the proposed, I don't think we have the proposed DTM in here yet. I'm going to try the SR61 pavement and see if it'll give me something there. This would be a substitute. So when you get to, this is something I don't think we have time to cover, but when you created a top surface, you can use that as well. You can use that that'll show up on your terrain models. So I'm just going to do this. Fill factory. Boundary. Save result really is just going to allow you to put a text box in here, which I think with my annotation scale is not set up correctly. It's not going to display. It probably is not. Window 50. Question for you, Todd. Do you have, were you guys able to create cross sections? Do you have a file that those are created already?
Yeah, we're not putting them on a report, so. Are you talking about putting a table on it?
No, I'm not putting I need the name boundaries for one of the steps that I was going to do, so I'll just,
I can show them that real quick if you want it, or just create an RDXS file and lay out your name boundaries, and then recut. Because you have to have those first. So I think you'll probably have to delete your.
Right, I was just wondering if you already had it.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think we got time to go through that. let me show this other report. I was trying to get display, and I think it's my annotation scale, but 150 should show up. Let me show what this other thing. So if I do analyze volume, it does show the volumes in there. Back in here, so if I go from existing ground to SR61 pavement, so if I just go to this point without finishing through this save result, so if I go to that, it's going to disappear, but it shows me at the bottom, so that's another place you can see it. Now these, I think, are in the square foot or cubic feet, not cubic yards, if I remember correctly. So that's just something to be aware of because these are going to be in the current units. So you can do like an end area volume, and that's where we actually have to have the cross sections already set up to be able to do that. It's not the preferred method. It's not the method that we recommend using. It's just an option to be able to generate that if you want to cross-check it. So let me see here. I do. Technically for earthwork, there should be a surface at the bottom of the structural core, or bottom of the base rather. My bottom surface. So if I create that bottom surface, I could do the analyze volumes and make sure I had the correct volume there. I wanted to show you where it's set up in the feature definition. So if you look in your the components, all these meshes has a volume option for the design. That's right in here with symbology. So if you click through them, you can see what all everything's set to. I think these are all design. So miscellaneous is none because it doesn't get counted in the cut and fill volumes. So if you want to see what something is, that's where you can tell. And if you need to set something, like subgrade, for example, can be set there as well. I don't have scope that's design as well. If you look in the libraries, you can see them all, besides it's just in this file. And it takes a second to load the libraries for some reason. I think we have a file, Todd, where the name boundaries are already created. I may just dive into that file so we don't have to go through the process of creating the name boundaries. You guys know how to do it, right? I mean, any questions right now? I'm waiting for this thing to load.
Specifically about what? Because I do still have a question.
or
Yes.
anything else that
So-
we covered?
I did overhear about the reports, placing reports, and I do know that we're going for a different direction for ORD projects. But some projects that we do have now, we do have cross sections on the plan sheet, and we still do need the tables. So I was wondering, the end area method, is it are the quantities generated from the annotation group, that table report, are those supposed to be automated quantities, or are those supposed to be numbers that we input ourselves?
So, Candy, are you on by any chance?
Mic on.
Yes, I am. Sorry. I was trying to figure out how to get unmuted.
Mic off.
Were you planning on addressing that in your session?
I'm not sure if you're doing quantities by end area, you have to fill out the table by hand.
Okay.
If you use the surface to surface earthwork and apply the item types and generate it with quantity takeoff manager, you're going to get a more accurate quantity, and you can do that with quantity takeoff manager. So,
Okay.
and I'm thinking that, they should accept the quantities from QTM. And if you need backup, you can show the end area, the average end areas, but
We're not
I
going to
don't
be
know.
showing end area. We're not going to be showing the volumes on the cross sections anymore. That's changing,
yes.
right? That's one thing to keep in mind. So if you're thinking that, oh, I need to have the volumes on each cross section, no, not for ORD projects.
But isn't that coming from the 900 series? You still have the 300 series that calls for those.
Yeah, and the thing is, I do have a project that's in production in November.
And that part of it is, if you're following that 300 series, that's going to be a manual process.
Okay.
I can show you where they are. There is a table that goes on for annotation groups, but there's feature defects that is not running off a complex element or alignment, so it doesn't always work. And I think I was helping Garrett O'Brady with this and kind of going through that.
Yeah, it's just
District 4. It's just, yeah, it's buggy. It's a manual process right now, and there's cleanup. If you guys want, I can share my screen and show you where it is.
No, I just wanted to make sure if I was doing it correctly, because I realized that some numbers did come in. So I just wanted to know if I messed up on using the Earthwork tools on the default model.
We can look, if you want to, we can look at that like tomorrow, or I can get with you and look at that part of it.
Okay.
So, do you want me to share my screen, John Mark, and kind of go through that, or?
Well, I guess that depends if you want me to go through the end area, generating the end area report first to actually see the numbers, or if you want to go straight to
I can
how
do
you
that
look at the
too.
numbers in the report.
No, because that's how you do it.
Okay.
You got to cut. It's the process of doing that. I just don't know if it's going to work off of that. I have a file set up, so I can share my screen if you want.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. This thing looks like it's on right now anyway.
Okay. So the process for that, and this is on Bentley's website too, because you'll want to have your cross sections, your name boundaries laid out first, your clips. But what you're going to do is not cut your sheets in that. I think I've cut sheets already in these. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete these models for this example.
You're not showing your screen yet, Ted?
Was it not showing?
I see the screen.
Okay.
Okay, maybe mine's just lagging.
So, can you guys see it okay?
I
Yeah.
can see it now.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I have an RDXS file that I'm going to reference in my alignment, my model, the DSGN, the existing, that surveys the existing ground, the first step is that I want to do is set my existing ground active and then resync my template, the template that I have. And in order for this to get this tool to work the best, you'll set that to final, or your template, the stage to final, and then run them. I don't know if it's going to work now or not. So let me just go in and go to drawing production, so I'm not kind of going in leading you guys in the wrong part of it. I'm going to delete these shapes. So start over. So basically you'll set your cross-section file up, right? And I'm going to try to think the process to do it. And then, yeah, so you set this up, you'll go to drawing production, set my cross sections. I'll do 11 by 17. I'm going to uncheck the create drawing because I just want to lay out my cross sections. And I'll just do a few in there. So I know it works off of, so let me do a little setup. So I've laid them out for the State Road 61. That's a complex element. The alignment is complex together, so I don't think it's going to work. However, the baseline of 98 is not. So let me reference in that lighting one real quick, and I'll show you a couple of different ways. So let me attach. That lighting in there, and it's set to final. So that's in there. So let me run some off of this 98 too, cross sections. So I'll come in and lay that out. I'll just lay a few off that way. So I have my cross sections laid out. I now need to go what John Mark was showing and go to the civil analysis. But before I do that, let me select on one of these name boundaries and open up the name boundary heart. If I look in the civil properties part of it, you'll notice that there's no end area volume XML in here. That's what we're trying to get in from the report. So in order to get that to read to the cross sections, you have to have your name boundaries laid out. And then I would come up to the civil analysis and create the cut fill volumes like John Mark was showing. You would set your cut feature to the feature definition, volumes cut, your fill, if you have any unsuitable. So it's just working through that tool. I don't have anything in that. And it's got a data point in my 3D view. It'll do its work. It's created the surfaces. After it computes that, so it's taking the design stages of the meshes that we have in our corridor and changing them or comparing them to the existing ground. So we see our the two surfaces, our cut and fill. Hopefully it doesn't crash because it is kind of buggy.
It looks like you're referencing maybe a different version than the files I have, which it's
Well, I just drew this one, so I just have that. I just drew
Okay.
that. That's not the
Okay.
same State Road 61, just for example. So it's cut those in there. So the next step, that's the volumes. So then I can come to the volume reports, and it's going to go off a name boundary. So that's why we need to lay them out to the name boundaries, because we should see in here the two different name boundaries. We have one for the State Road 61, so we can compare just off the name boundaries. So let's do the center line of this CL and just data, point to accept the boundary, and then this is going to select the start cross-section name boundary for volume. So I'm just going to reset to complete. Or so if I had like a bridge or exception, I would pick a boundary, a name boundary for where that's going to start and where it's going to stop. Since I don't have one, I can just reset and re-click or right-click through that tool. So that's going to compare, and I think this is the step that John Mark was getting to, is it's going to create this end area volume report, and this is what we're turning in instead of the boundaries from or on the sheets in the 900 series. Is that correct, John Mark?
Yes, and if you want to, there's a couple of things on formatting you can play with. If you go to the tools and format options, you set it station correctly.
Yeah, and then you can convert it to
and
key
should be able to-
cards if you
yeah.
need to.
Yeah, usually you'd want to do that.
If there's so if I close,
And if you want to change the precision, you can change the precision in there too. You don't really need 3 decimal thousandths place for Earthwork.
yeah, so that's that one. And then ideally, let me do the same thing for the US 98. The volume per, so this time I'm going to do the US 98. So again, if I had exceptions, I would locate that first boundary and the second boundary for the exceptions. I don't have any on this, so I'm going to reset to complete. And it's going to process that. And that'll bring up that report for the US 98. And again, you can format. So I have the reports created. So now if I look at any of these named boundaries, if I bring the property of that and go to the civil, you'll notice that there's the cut and fill volume from those reports got written into the named boundaries in there. So if I click on either one
Mic
from the
off.
US 98 or the State Road 61 or US 98, I don't get click happy under that boundary. I have an XML of that report cut into each of those. So at this point, I have those in there. So now I can go to my drawing production tab, I go to the name boundaries. This time I want to go to the manager, like Chris was showing the other day, and click open on that. And if I have my cross sections, so I have my name boundaries out, I don't have my cross section drawing model or sheet model cut. I want to do that now. What I want to do is check on this box to annotate the drawing models and then show the create drawing dialog by that little pencil. So I toggle those two on, and then so I select the cross section that I want to cut, toggle on the annotate drawing models and the dialog box. And then I'll come over to create cross sections, which is this little icon here. It's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th one from the right, and click on that. And here's that second dialog, so I can name it. It's going to default to have the cross section annotation on by default. This will give me my grid lines. So I'll click OK on that. So this is going to create cross sections for centerline State Road 61. I'll do the same process for the US 98. After, when I come back into this to show you guys. So it's going to cut the cross sections. I still need to get the table back on there. So let me cut the clips for US 98 real quick. So if I go back to default, and I'll throw this on the other screen real quick for now. Just so on the default, I'm going to go back to right click and view control because I need a 3D view open to cut cross sections. So I'm going to do that. So now I'm going to cut my cross sections for the US 98. Again, I'll go to drawing production, the name boundaries. I'm going to click it down on the right hand lower corner to bring up the manager. And that's on the other screen. So again, I will toggle on the annotate and the show create drawing, open up my cross section groups that have my baseline US 98, select that one. Once I select that, these two icons are toggled. I can create cross sections. It's going to be based off of that. Again, I'll have that 98 and then click OK. So once I have those done, I can come back and add another annotation group that we have, and there's a chance that it's not going to work if it's a complex element, whether it's the alignment is complex or the profile is complex. And that is a enhancement that we send into Bentley to fix. So we're done with the name boundary manager. I'm going to go and bring up my model dialog. And it doesn't matter what drawing model I am in. I'll just go to the first one of my baseline 98. And if I look here, you'll see there's shapes. My cut and fill shapes are in there. So ideally, it would be as easy to do as going into the drawing model, going to your drawing production tab, the annotations group, go to your model annotation and annotate model. And this time I'm just going to do one, but I want to switch my annotation group from the XS annotation to cross sections, drawing. I want to find my XS EAB table. And if it works, it'll put a table up here on the right hand side. And this is my baseline 98. So I'm just going to do one drawing model. If I would select this box, it would do all the drawing models. So I'm going to left click once to accept for the drawing models, and then another left click to accept the table, the Earthwork table. And it's going to put it up there. So it should put something like this on each of these tables, but it should be in this lower or this right hand corner over there. So once that's in there, and that's something we need to look at. So I will right click on this. You shouldn't have to do this. I'm going to put it over in this right hand corner. So this is reading volumes off of that report and putting them on there. There's still cleanup that you'll have to do, like trimming some lines, and that's just with the normal trims. But it should be that easy. It is kind of buggy because I'll go back to the State Road 61 and try to do the same thing, and it won't show up, or it might show up. See if they fixed it. but you would just kind of come in and do cleanup of work like that. That's how we have that table set up. You'll notice it's not going to be the normal table that we're used to seeing in SS4, SS10 because of how the grids were made and that they've changed. It's a different process to annotate the grids in there. And if I don't want that, I would just come back. You can remove it. I can go to another one. Drawing model there. Again, to add that, I'll go to the model annotation. This time I'll do all models. I'll select the annotation group that I want, which is the EAV table. And this time it's going to do all drawing models. So left click and left click. And there's something with the orientation on this. It should put it over here, so that's changed. But then if I select that, so that's something we may have to look into. So I'll right click and move. But that's would be how it's automated. And again, that's going to take, it's going to do that conversion for you. Your cut and view, just clean that up. But now if I go toggle through all these, it should be in all these drawing models. I would just have to move that over. That's another thing we'll have to look into. So does that make sense to everybody? But that's because the alignment for the baseline is not a complex element. So let me go over to the 701. Was there a question?
I was just going to ask, but we do have the option just to deliver the report, even though we're still doing plans, because we have the same option, to replace the summary of quantity tables with the reports based on an email that came out.
Right, and it's the same information, it's just displayed a different way. I mean, that's almost, to give the report, that's almost better. And just
Todd,
and verify.
I was wondering if you can show, since you already created it here, if you can show that export process from the report is how you would save it as a CSV when you're done with that.
Okay. So I just tried that same process on the State Road 61. Since it is a complex, it doesn't work, and that's where that bug is. So if you wanted it to put on these, you would just go into, if you need to do it, this is the manual part. It's in, I think, the cross-section cell library. The cross-section EAV table. So you would just have to go in there and then fill this stuff out manually. That's the manual process if it doesn't show. The better process is to just replace, not show it on here and provide that report. I think would be the most, because there's going to be a lot more cleanup. And that's something that we're looking to. That's kind of the route that we're pushing, or going towards, I guess, not really pushing, but going towards, to deliver that report. So you wanted to go back to, is there any questions on any of that for the reports or the annotation groups or that process of getting the reports?
I got a question. If something changed in the model, after you do the Earthwork calculation and you plot that table in the, supposedly if you plot the table in the sheet, in the cross-section sheet, it's not gonna, if you do some changes in the model, it's not gonna update itself, right? You have to plot the table again or fix it manually?
Yeah, you would have to fix it manually, or I don't know if, are the shapes, John Mark, do you know the shapes that the Earthwork, if your model does changes, are those dynamic?
That's a good question. I haven't tested it enough to check to check. They should be dynamic, but I don't know.
Yeah. I would think, I mean, it should be. We don't know a whole lot. I know the annotation groups are not dynamic, so you would have to re-annotate those to the model. The model is dynamic, but then the annotation groups are not. I don't know if you would have to replace the shapes and recalculate your earthwork, or if it would read off the model, if that model does change or the ITL does change. That's something that we need to test a little bit more.
Okay, because I know I haven't used ORD yet, but in SS4 you will have to do pre-annotate anything when anything changed. So I thought that in ORD that was different, but probably not.
For some features, yes. I mean, it is but with annotation groups, they are not dynamic to the model. They would have to be reapplied. So,
Okay.
but that's something that we can make a note of and investigate a little bit more of if something does change with that earthwork. If it does change those two surfaces that you create off the models, or if they have to, quicken. It is a simple process to redo and get those calculations. So if I go back to the home, that's something we're going to have to look into a little bit more. If something does change design-wise in that, if these heal themselves to the model, or if it needs to, we haven't really looked at that part of it, I guess. We're just kind of getting into the earthwork right now, I think. But I think John Mark was going, so if I would do that volume again, and I'll just pick the US 98 one for now. And I think this is what I was running into with Garrett when I was helping him, that we ran into. If it's a complex element, whether the alignment is complex together and has intervals or the profile is, it won't run that report for some reason. But everything that you have here is that report. And you were saying take this to a CSV, John?
Yeah, I just do file save as. You should be able to save it as a CSV. Actually, yeah, save as type XLS, I guess. That would be that. That would be the easier solution.
Yeah, so you would just save that. I think is Candy still on? Candy, is this the report that you guys are taking or looking at taking advantage of to get to quantities?
No, the quantities is just surface to surface item types.
Okay.
My understanding is that they're not going to be including those anymore, but for the overlap projects, they may have to. But that's
we know some people are going to want the end areas. So this is how you can get those numbers if you needed. If you wanted to put that in the report, you could massage it. You could massage it in Excel and get it in the right format. But that's a manual effort, I guess, right, to get into that report.
Yep.
Called test strip.
And there's a couple different ones. So so it looks like it saved the State Road 61. So there's that one, that report. So it looks like it automatically saves it as an Excel when you exit.
I think you saved it.
Or is that something? Here's the test.
It was saved from before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the data set I sent out, I already had it saved when I was testing it.
But Yeah, you just save it out as a spreadsheet and you could give this or send this in. I don't know what the correct, or if that's a correct format or not. John Mark, if that's.
That I think you'd probably have to play with it a little bit, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I think it's perfectly acceptable for even for 300 series projects to use surface-to-surface report, and that's the new quantities. That's the way the report's set up. So that's the preferred method. It's way more accurate than end area. There's still inaccuracies with the end area because of the nature of it. Surface to surface, by the nature of it, is going to be more accurate. So that's something to keep in mind if you're using end area. The question I would ask is why? Why not use surface to surface? So that's something to ask, through the chain. The end area is there, and I would think of it as if you want to check, by all means use it to check. Really, if you want to check surface to surface, that's when you can start using another tool like Trimble and put the surfaces in there that you've created, and you can run the same surface to surface in Trimble as a comparison. And if your viewers want to do that, they can do that too once you've created surfaces. So that end area report, I'm wondering if it's a feature definition setting where it doesn't generate if it's complex together.
No.
I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, no. It shouldn't. So it just, for whatever reason. But we've seen that a couple different times. If you want to share go back to sharing your screen. I'm just doing a real quick profile and stuff.
Let's see, I think that's about it for Earthwork. I don't have much else to show. I'll just open this sample file up, but that's one I was testing before. Oh, there's our group. I'll bring up the schedule.
I think that's just Q&A. We can start that or go to lunch.
Yeah.
Mic on.
Do you have any questions on Earthwork at this point before we go to lunch?
I'm inclined to say we should possibly break here.
I think so.
Yeah, I've got to run to the vet and pick up Eugene. They say he is in need of coming home. Not to make it about me, but